With the thought that Ohio State always has a next guy to step up, Jalen Marshall and Michael Thomas were surely missed in 2016 as the Buckeyes struggled getting the ball down the field and certainly when it counted against the better teams on the schedule. Brandon Zimmerman from the Buckeye Battle Cry joining us each and every Wednesday night. And as we head towards spring camp, we're going to break down each and every position so we get to a sore spot for the Buckeyes in 2016, talking wide receiver. Brandon, so I'm going to put you to work here because it's not like there's a couple 70-catch guy coming back that are known factors. We saw KJ Hill. We saw Terry McLaurin, Parris Campbell, a lot of guys coming back that we saw in spots. They certainly were on the field and had opportunities, but didn't necessarily pull through. So can you sort through the 5 or 6 or 7 guys that are in the mix right now?
Wide receiver was supposed to be one of those strong spots going into last year. We had all heard about Noah Brown and how he was supposed to step into that Michael Thomas role. Coming off of the injury, no one really knew what to expect from him, but all we heard was from coaching staff telling us how good Noah Brown was. Had his moments where he looked pretty dominant. You know, you look against the Oklahoma Sooners when he caught 4 touchdown passes. He looked pretty dominant there. People thought going forward the wide receivers would be pretty set in stone. It never really turned out that way. Their only legitimate wide receiver threat consistently throughout the year was Curtis Samuel from that H-back spot. He got 74 passes, but he's gone. Noah Brown's gone. Dontre Wilson's gone. So that's their 3 top catchers are all leaving. So that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of the younger guys. The one guy I really think is going to step up is Binjimen Victor. He played sparingly, but had a few flashes down the stretch against Michigan, against Clemson, where he looks like he can be that dominant player that the Buckeyes need out at wide receiver. Really tall guy, can go up and make a play on the ball. His big thing is just going to be putting on a little bit of weight. I believe he's like 6'4", 180. He has a speed. He has a height. The height. He can make plays on the ball. So I think Victor is going to be a big one. Starting, and I think Victor is going to start in that Noah Brown, Michael Thomas role. Opposite of him, I think it's going to be a pretty good competition between Austin Mack, who was another true freshman last year. Mack was the spring game star. I believe he caught 12 or 13 balls last year during the spring game. But just like most freshmen, once it got to the regular season, he was kind of pushed back a little bit. So he got a few garbage time plays. Wound up only having two catches on the year. So I think Austin Mack, Parris Campbell, who started for most of last year, is going to be in play for that other wide receiver spot. Parris Campbell is another one where a lot more was expected of him than what was really produced last year. So it's going to be the coaching staff trying to figure out what to do with him. There's been talk about him possibly moving into H-back. Try to get him lined up on the linebackers or the safeties and see if he can exploit them with his speed there. Because last year at wide receiver, it just really wasn't working him against the cornerbacks. But Parris Campbell's young. He came to Ohio State as a 16-year-old. So just a super young guy that even though he's going to be a junior this year, he's still, I believe, only 19 years old. So, it could just click for him. So Austin Mack and Parris Campbell are the 2 that I think will be fighting for that job opposite of Binjimen Victor. And then you go into the H-back spot where they lost Curtis Samuel and Dontre Wilson. They're 2 guys that they kind of relied on at a lot of times last year. And it's kind of expected that DeMario McCall is going to be the one that goes into that H-back role. We saw him at times last year as a running back, and he looked pretty dominant. What we haven't seen is him as a pass catcher. I'm sure the coaching staff has, and they feel comfortable with it since they're throwing his name around. Outside of McCall, you're looking at KJ Hill, who was one of the backups last year. I personally think I would love to see KJ Hill move to the outside and compete for that spot with Austin Mack and with Parris Campbell. I think KJ Hill has a lot of talent. I don't think if he's necessarily the H-back type of guy that we would expect where he's used to running the ball. But I think KJ Hill, wherever he lines up, is going to be a big part of the offense next year.
Yeah, KJ Hill is a kid who caught actually the season's first touchdown of the season against Bowling Green. He got hurt, tweaked an ankle against Oklahoma. He wasn't seen for about a month. He caught a pass against Wisconsin. He was kind of in and out after that and really didn't take hold. Caught 18 balls on the season for 262 and a touchdown that first game against Bowling Green. And yeah, there has been speculation, as you mentioned, even though KJ Hill doesn't, when you look at his body style and you look at what he's produced in the past and not been asked to carry the football as a running back, that he wouldn't necessarily appear to be the fit at H-back, but there is speculation that he could be the next Braxton Miller, Jalen Marshall, Curtis Samuel in that line, and I don't necessarily, along with you, think that would be the best fit, and hopefully, despite only catching 4 passes last season, Demario McCall is up to the challenge of being the next Curtis Samuel. Parris Campbell, 13 catches for $121, never emerged. You mentioned McLaurin. He caught a couple touchdowns and 11 receptions. James Clark just saw the field a little bit. Binjimen Victor, the guy that we both noted after the debacle against Clemson, was a bright spot in a game completely void of any downfield throwing. He made 2 plays downfield, one on a pass interference where he completely burned the DB, the other one getting up the seam and catching one for 20 or 22 yards. So Binjimen Victor hopefully could be the breakout star that the Buckeyes need outside. Trevon Grimes is a top 40 prospect regardless of position, 6th rated wide receiver coming out of high school football in 2016. Jalen Harris also in this recruiting class in 2017 as a top 30 wide receiver. So these are guys obviously that with numbers but not quality numbers necessarily, or guys that are proven could play themselves into the mix as well.
Yeah, it is always hard for freshmen to jump into a starting role, especially with Urban Meyer. He likes to say that the best players going to play, that true freshmen will play. But, history shows that it's hard for freshmen to break into that starting lineup, especially from the start. So I think Trevon Grimes is going to be a big part next year. I'm not sure it'll be starting from week 1. It's going to be one of those things where they kind of work him into things maybe down the stretch once you get into the Michigans and the bowl games. Grimes may be a bigger part of that offense. But right now, I really expect it to be Victor on the outside. McCall as H-back, as much as I would almost rather him stick at running back and move Campbell into the H-back spot, and then have KJ Hill start on the opposite side. But if I had to pick right now, I'd go Victor as a starter, Austin Mack as a starter, and Demario McCall as the other starter.